Hey, this is Tim again. I hope you're doing well. This is the second video, the second Robot Studio video. I'm trying to build up your skills, so we can basically for your final capstone project. Here's a video that we made earlier. We have the, I don't know how clear this is. It's in high definition. That works. This is a video that Elliot, our technician, took. This is our conveyor belt that you have experience with. There's your HMI and your PLC. You can see that the PLC is connected to the robot controller. I'll show you that wiring in class. But essentially, there's our conveyor belt. These are our jenga blocks. There's our industrial robot, and they're the three bins. So this robot is going to sort the jenga blocks into the three bins. We have three types of jenga blocks with three types of barcodes, and we have our barcode reader. So let's just run this thing. So let me just pause that for a second and go back. We're going to have three different paths, which we have three different jenga blocks. Let's say, so we have three different paths, and what we're going to do is we're going to use RobotStudio to program the three different paths. And then we're going to have three different digital inputs. So essentially the barcode detects a type 1 jenga block. The PLC realizes that it's type 1, and what it's going to do, the PLC is going to output a signal to the controller to say, right, this is a type 1, or it's a type 2, or it's a type 3. And then the robot controller, based on the digital input, it will decide which path to proceed with. Before we do any of that digital input business, we're going to have to create three paths. And how are we going to do that? We're going to use RobotStudio to do that. We're going to create this table, a model of the table. We're going to import the robot. We're going to create a model of the conveyor belt and a model of the three bins. So we already have a model that we've done in SolidWorks for the controller, and a model for the conveyor belt, and we have a model for the three bins. So you're just going to import those. Okay? So that's just an overview of what we're going to do in this lab. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with that digital input business. So the first thing I want you to do is load up ABB Robot Studio. So get this running. Another thing I can tell you is you should be able to download Robot Studio at home for about 30 days. Basically the full program. I think it would be a good idea to practice Lab 1 and Lab 2. In any spare time that you have. So what's the first thing we do? We go to File, and I click on Empty Station, and I double click on that, and this comes up. And the next thing I do, I'm in Home, and I go to Modeling, and I click on Solid. So what are we going to do? We're going to build a table first. We're going to build a model of our industrial robot table that you see in the room. So it's going to start off at the origin. Now another thing, I have this set to be millimeters. That's what Elliot, a lot of the measurements that Elliot has done in this tutorial are all in millimeters, so we need to do that. So let's go to File, Options, Units, Length, and make sure this says millimeters. Okay, I'll go back, Modeling, and we have this, leave this corner point 0, 0, 0. That means this origin here, and I need my measurements. Here they are. The length is going to be 762 millimeters. The width is going to be 1219, and the height of the table is 50.8 millimeters. Okay, so what is that? That's about two and a half inches maybe. Okay, and I'll create that and have the main table, and I'll do another solid. And what I want you to do, let's press escape here just for a sec. You're going to create that solid at that point there. So I'm going to, now let's have a look. We need the endpoint snap turned on, and I don't know whether you can see that now. Now I can get this point. Right? Don't even try and put your cursor over the point. Put your cursor over the line and get that end point. You'll figure that out pretty soon. Now the length is going to be 50.8 and the width is going to be 50.8 and the height is going to be 228.6. Now that is roughly 9 inches. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to go 90 degrees orientation and see how come this thing isn't coming up here. There, it wants, yeah, it's this corner point. Okay, so I need to click on this. I need to start this again for you. I'm probably confusing the shit out of you. Alright, let's try this again. Solid box. I'm going to tell it where I want this corner point. So I click on one of these boxes, X, Y, and Z. And I'm not clicking on that corner because I'm using this snap. And I'm clicking somewhere around there. And now I have this point in place. Length 50.8. Width is just a square. And its height is 228.6. And look at this guy. It's not in the right orientation. So what do you need to do? You need to rotate it around the Z. And I'm going to try 90 degrees here. And let's look at it. And it looks good. Then I'm going to go create. So then I have one of the, if you look at the table in our lab, we have a table with 4 large columns on either side. And what we use those columns for is to actually screw in the plexiglas to. So we need to model those columns because we don't want the robot to somehow, if we don't model them, there's a little bit of a chance that the robot arm could hit them. You know, so it doesn't take a whole lot of work. So I'm going to rotate around this side, excuse me, box, corner point, 50.8, 50.8, and what do we want? 228.6, and that looks good. It doesn't matter that these things are intersecting with each other. We might even be able to union them. Let's see if I can union them. If I go there to there, well, let's highlight them all and go union. Is it union them? CAD operations. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Border around bodies, doesn't matter. Okay, let's do the same here. Solid box 50.8. I'm just copying and pasting this. 228.6. Alright, you can see here this is not the right orientation. I'm going to rotate 180 degrees around the Z. I'm going to go create. I now have my third one and the fourth one. Solid box. I'm using that endpoint snap. 50.8. 228.6. 228.6. Let's rotate this 180. That's not right. 270. Create. Okay, that's my table. I have all of that. Right, what are we going to do next? I'm going to give you a folder, and it's going to be called Robot Project 2 Parts. And in there, you're going to have this file name 8020-blue. This is the SAT file for those blue bins. I have a file for the conveyor, and then I have a file for the end effector that you're going to use. I'll get into all of this now in a sec. So let's go back. So what do we do? Home, import geometry. You look for the folder, and then we're going to just hit this 8020 blue. All it does is just imports it in. Okay. So these are my 3 bins. Now, I find with RobotStudio that it's a real pain to. It's quite a finicky program. It's not that intuitive. It's not a bad program either. But so, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move these bins away from the table, and then I'm going to position them towards it, because what's happening here is there's a little bit of an intersection, and it just can create a little bit of confusion. So how do we move it? I go to layout, I right click, and I go set position. Alright, now look at that's the X, Y, and Z. So I need to move it along the Y. So I'm going to move it minus 200 millimeters. You can see there's its original, and there's its the original, and it's going to be not the current, but the next one, then its next position. and I'll go apply, and there it is. Okay, so now I've gotten it away from the table, I can move it into place. So I go right click on it, I go place, and all I need to do is I need one. Well, I'm happy with the orientation of this, so I'm going to use 1 point. That's what I typically use. I set the rotation first, and then I place it with 1 point. And I'll give you an example of that now in a sec. Click 1 point. I zoom in here. I make sure this reference says world. I click one of these three here because I'm giving it a point, so it's an X, Y, and a Z, and I have this snap to the midpoint. And that midpoint is what I want. I zoom out, I rotate, I make sure that all this says is, the only thing I want to move is this blue bins. Now it looks like it's after losing that point, so let's try that again. There we go, now we got it. What a pain. Now I rotate, and okay, now I'm going to click here, and now I have the 2 points, and I have a feeling this is going to work. I got the 2 points, and all I want to do is move this. I'm going to go apply. Now I've had to practice that for a little bit, and when I was doing it earlier today, it wasn't working that well. It can be a pain. You know, play around with it, see what you can do, and if you get stuck, I'll help you. Now, import geometry. Browse for geometry. The next thing we want to do is put in the conveyor belt, and you'll see what I mean. So I want this conveyor belt to be rotated, and I want it to roughly sit around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it first. So I click on the conveyor, I click on rotate, and I want to rotate it around the Z first. So don't worry about this rotate around X, Y, and Z. We just want to this is going to rotate that around a point or something. We just want to rotate it around the axes. So this is what we want down here. So let's rotate it around the Z first. And let's rotate it 90 degrees. And go apply. And it's going to swing around in that direction. Okay? Then I click on Y. And I'm going to go apply. And it swings it around that direction. And now that's the orientation that we want. Okay? So I'm going to move this, and I'm going to get it to touch. There's no such thing as mates in RobotStudio. First of all, you're just moving 3D objects around points and things like that. I right click on the conveyor, I go place 1 point, and I'm going to zoom in, and I make sure that it says conveyor there, and this is from to 2. Alright, I have my midpoint, and I have that that's my start point. Now, I'm after clicking. Let me just get rid of this for a sec. Right? If I use that roller ball, it sometimes confuses it. Another thing you can do is you can hold down the control key, and I'm holding down the right mouse button, and I can zoom out there, and then I can rotate. So then I can hit that button, and now I can get the 2 of them. And then it puts it in place. So see how you get on with that. That took a little bit of practice. Look, let me undo it and do it again. I'm after pressing Control Z. So I click on the conveyor, right click on the conveyor, place 1 point. I make sure that this is highlighted. I rotate with the mouse. I'm actually using the middle mouse button here for a sec, and I'm clicking on one of these 3 X, Y, and Z's. I have my midpoint selected. I'm happy with that. Now if I start at this point, if I use that roller ball on the mouse, it screws with it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to zoom out. And then I'm going to click one of these points, and it's from to 2, and I'm going to go apply, and it works. You'll be frustrated with that until you get the hang of it. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this guy all the way over until it touches that column. So how do I do that? I'm going to go conveyor, place 1 point, and I'm going to zoom in. I want to get an end point. Right? One of those end points there in that piece of metal. I'm going to rotate here, and I'm going to go, well, see, that was useless. Let's try that again. I've got to click one of these. I've got to click from. Okay, now I've got a point in there. If you see if you're clicking stuff and you see 0, 0, 0, you're not getting it. You're not giving it what it wants. Now I rotate. I click here, and I'm going to get that endpoint. Now, if I do that, it's going to move this guy all the way up, and it's going to be touching there. But what I can do is I can just translate along the X, and all it will do is it'll just move along the X direction, and that's what you want. That's the trick. Okay. Now let's rotate this around a little bit. I have the table, I have the conveyor belt, I have the 3 containers. Let's save this. And what do we call it? We'll save it to the desktop, and I'm going to call this Jenga Sorter 1. Alright, the next thing you want to do is let's bring in the robot. So I'm going to click on Robot System, and I'm going to get it from a template. We just want to use an a predefined system. Do I know what the difference between these two are? For adding an existing system to your station, if you're creating a robot system from scratch, you want to use this from template. My instinct is, if you have 2 robots working in a system, you might, once you have one of them in there, you're going to put you'd use existing. So anyway, from template, that's what you're going to use all the time. And we have small robots, go to medium robots, paint robots, special purpose, all of them. The one we want is the little baby, IRB 120, and I go OK. First thing it does is it loads up its controller. So what's happening now is the actual controller of the robot is starting, the virtual controller. And we can't move the robot or do anything with it until that is working. So it's starting up, and it's nearly ready. Once this is done, what it will do then, it'll actually give you the model of the robot. And there it is. Okay? So the controller status is down there. Now, so let's rotate this around here like that. And what we need to do is we need to move this into the position that it is in the real world. So how do we do that? I right click on here, and I go place 1 point. The robot is in the actual orientation that I want. So I'm going to have to get out of here because I'm not really zoomed in enough. Let's try that again. Place, sorry, 1 point. I'm actually doing this now on a Sunday, and I have a goulash recipe in the kitchen that's bubbling away, and it's distracting me, to be quite honest with you. Place 1 point, primary point. I'm going to get this midpoint here, okay? And there, that's 1. Now it didn't take it. Let's try it again. Now we have it. 2, there. Apply. Now what it's saying is, do you want to move the task frame? It's basically saying, do you want to move the home position or the coordinate system of the robot? Yes. And that's where it goes there. Now, that's not a good place for the robot because we have all these cables that are sticking out the back. So what I did is, a few years ago, I moved it up 8 inches. So let's try that again. Let's go here. Instead of going place, we're going to set position. And what I can do is, I'm going to, instead of this reference being the world, it's going to be a local position. And I'm just going to move it in the X direction. I'm going to move it 203.2 millimeters. And what that is, that's 8 inches. Okay? And that position now, the numbers that you're using, that's the real position where the robot is on the table. And we have all these cables here, and we have 4 big bolts that are bolting this robot to the table. And that's it. Now the last thing we need to put into place is the end effector. So I go import geometry, browse for geometry. I'm going to go short bolt effector. Now this is an end effector that Joe and Elliot designed in SolidWorks, and I'm just giving you their model. Now what this thing was just cut using our laser cutter, and we just put a vacuum end chuck on the end of it. So this is the short bolt effector, and that was the name they gave it. So if I drag this and I hold onto it and I grab it onto the mechanism, what it does is it just locks that. I'll go yes. Now it didn't work. Interesting. Let's try that again. There it goes. I was like, what's going on? Now why did it move that? Let's just undo that for a second. I think I grabbed part 5. Right click, view all. Okay, let's try that again. Short boat effector. And just drag it up there. Yes. Okay, good. So all I'm doing is I'm moving this end effector and I'm just dragging it. How does it know to go right there? When you do something like that, it assumes that this is an end effector, and it's basically moving the 0 coordinate of this part to the 0 coordinate of that part. Okay, and that's what happens. Now, if I move this robot like so, now let's see if I can grab. It'll move that end effector with the robot like so. Now I'm going to press Ctrl Z just to undo that. And I'm going to press X to get out of this. Now what do we need to do? Before we do anything, we've got two last things we need to do. Currently the 0, 0, or essentially the end of the robot, is where you see this green, blue and red line. Okay, what we need to do is say, no, that's not where the end of the robot is, where we want you to do all those targets. We want you to do those targets from this point. So let me show you how to do that. Now what is that called? We're going to create a tool data. So I click on create tool data. I'm just going to call this vacuum underscore chuck. And then I'm going to call it, I'm going to give this a tool frame. Okay? The position and the rotation. So I click this, and then I need to give it an X, Y, and a Z. Doesn't matter which one I press, and I wanted to get right at the center of that. So instead of mid-pointing, I'm going to go snap to center. Okay, now I'm not getting anything in there, but let's try that again. Now I have it. Now I have the data. Now I have the numbers X, Y, and Z that I need, and I'm going to go accept. Excuse me. Now, I know from experience I just need to change this rotation by 180 degrees and it will work. Okay, just by trial and error. So let's do that, and then I'm going to go create. Now look at this. Now let's look at my world coordinate system. X in this direction, Y in that direction, and Z. So you can see here what's happening now. The Y is in the right direction, and the Z and the X have just rotated slightly, but it is correct. Okay. Now that's done. The next thing we need to do is this is just a robot that we imported. We've calibrated our industrial robot in the college, and we need to get that calibration data, and we need to import it into this controller, so they're both the same. So what would be the problem if we didn't do that? We've adjusted that robot slightly, we've done things to it. We need to ensure that this controller, this virtual controller, has the same calibration data as the real robot. So how do you do that? Well, in reality, you use your teach pendant, and you can export a configuration file from the teach pendant. And what we do is we have that file, and I have that file to give you. So we go to controller, I go to load parameters, and I have this eio.cfg. It's just a configuration file. Okay? And it says the existing parameters will be deleted. Do you want to load the parameters? And I'll go yes. Okay. And then it's going to go, yeah, the parameters are loaded, but if you want to actually use these, you're going to have to restart the controller. Well, that's fine, we can do that. So I'm going to have to restart. I'm just going to restart the controller. What it does is it turns itself off. Is it restarting? Do you want to warm start the controller? So that means that we're just turning it off and we're turning it back on with the new parameters. And I would definitely do that. Okay, let's give this a second or two. Alright. Okay. I think it might be a good idea for us to make a little Jenga block model here. And the position of this Jenga block model needs to be the position of where your sensor stops or where it lets it go. Okay, now let's see if we can do this. I'm going to go home. I'm going to go import. No, we don't import geometry. We're just going to create a box. Modeling solid box. Okay. And I'm going to click on surface selection. I'm going to click on a center point, and right there will do. Okay. Now let's do this corner point, like so. And then we'll go length. Now I don't have a clue what the length of a Jenga block is. Let's see if we can find out. Okay. Jenga block size millimeters. So what is it? It's. Let me get a pen here. Yeah, it's 1.5 centimeters by 2.5 by 7.5. Okay, there are the dimensions. Alright, let's get out of here and let's try that again. Width, the length is going to be, let's make it 7, it will be 750, too much, 75. By the width is going to be 25 and the height is going to be 15. And that's okay. Look, we'll just create it there. And I'm going to move this around. So let's call this, let's rename this. What are we trying to do? No, we don't rotate it. Let's rename it. Jenga block. Alright. Then I'm going to right click. I'm going to go rotate. And I'm going to rotate around the 90 degrees around the Z. Now, where is it gone? It's over here. That's okay. Alright, you're going to like this. So what do we do? I right click, place one point. Yeah, come on. See, if I click anywhere else, it takes it. Let's zoom in here. Okay. Jenga block primary point, midpoint. We're going to pick it, yeah, right there, and I'm going to zoom out. To there, and I'm going to go apply. Now you're going to have to play around with that for a while, I would think. That's going to be about 10 minutes work for you to get that block there, or at least 5 minutes work. So there's my block. I'm going to hit the save button. And let's say I need to create a target. Okay, so this is the last thing I'll show you. So you've done a lab now and you've created targets and you've created paths. The only thing you haven't really set up the workstation we're after doing there. So what I will do here is I'm just going to move this guy to like a home position, the robot to the home position. I'm going to rotate. Let's just turn this off for a sec. Okay. Don't do that. Come on. Alright, that works. And then I'll rotate one of the joints. No, wrong one. That works. Okay, that'll do. Alright, so this, I like this configuration the robot is in will do as a starting point. So what I actually do here is I can move the robot to where I want, and I can go teach target. Okay. Alright, now I have a target. I'm going to have another one. So I'm just going to zoom in here. Instead of going teach target, I'm going to create a target from a point. I'm going to click on add new, and I'm going to get this mid-end closest. This is a multi user snap object, and it should get right in the middle, which it does. Let's try that again. Okay, now we have that position. Now you want to make sure when you're creating targets that it says T-Robot1. You want to make sure that this task says IRB 120, and I'm going to go create. All right, and then I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to go copy, and I'm going to go Control V, and I have two of them. What am I going to call this? I'm going to call this offset. Okay, and what am I going to do? I'm going to right click and I'm going to go modify target, and I'm going to offset it. I'm going to bring it up in the Z direction. So the translation, maybe make it 6 inches. 6 multiplied by 25.4. That is the scaling. Okay, 152. I'm going to make it's after doing it twice. Let's make it 80 millimeters. So you have to bring it down now. Yeah, there we go. So I have 3 targets now. So now this might be interesting. Let's right click on this and go configurations. And again, I have only one type of configuration, and that's it. Okay? Is that, yeah. The other thing you can do is we can go apply here if we want to, but maybe what happens if we don't want the robot to pick it up in that orientation? What I can do is I can come down here and I can go modify target, and I can rotate. And I can rotate this 90 degrees around the Z, and you'll see what it does. I'm going to go close, and I need to reconfigure that. Yeah, that's not what I want. I want it the other direction. Okay, let's do this. Can I go view robot at target? And then I'm going to go modify target, rotate, and I want to rotate it by 90 degrees. And I'll go close. There should be a way that it automatically it doesn't like that. So let's just undo. I'm going to undo everything here for a sec. Okay, I have my 2 targets. Let's do this. I'm going to right click on target 20. View robot, view tool at target, jump to target, modify target. Okay, let's rotate it in a different direction than 90. See, now it's doing it. Okay, there we go. Close. So I think that's how we want the orientation to be. It doesn't really matter. There's just a less chance that it's going to bang into anything around here. Okay. So okay, let's do this one then. I'm going to go configurations, and I like that configuration. That works. There's only one. Okay. Let's click here. Now what do I need to do with this one? I need to rotate that as well. So I right click. Let's go view robot at target, and I'm going to go modify target, rotate, and we'll rotate it around the Z. And I want it in the same direction. I don't know why this isn't updating like it should be, but I want it in the same. The blue is in the right direction, the greens are matching, the reds are matching. So I go close, and I'll right click, and I'll go configurations. There, and it does it. I don't know why it doesn't automatically update that. Okay, apply and close. Now, let's click here, and I'll go view robot at target. I'll click here, and I'll click there. And what you can do is you can create a target over here. So what we could do is I'll go to target, I'll zoom in here, I'll create a midpoint right there, and I'll go create. I'm going to offset this target. I don't need to copy it. Now see how the robot automatically updates that target, and it didn't do it other times. I don't know, I'm confused. Alright. I'll right click, I'll go rotate 90 degrees. There we go, nice, I like that. Close. Offset, modify target, offset. I'll move it up in the Z direction by 3 inches, so it's going to be roughly around 16 millimeters. Let's make it 80. Yeah, that works. Let's make it even 100, I think. Okay. And let's move it in the Y direction as well. So let's move it 150 in the Y. I don't think we want to move it in the Y. It looks like the Y, the local. If I go to, let's try this again. Okay. Offset position. We want to offset it in. Yeah, it looks like the coordinate system of this is different to this world coordinate system. So if we go world coordinate system and I go 100 in the Z and 150 in the Y, it's going to put us in a nice place. Okay, and that's it. I don't want to do everything for you. So you might have a few more there, there, there. So what are you going to do from here on out? You're going to create 3 paths. That's what you're going to do. You're going to have 3 paths. This is where you're going to be picking up the Jenga block, and you're going to have a path, and you're going to do your vacuum digital output, and you're going to turn it on and turn it off and use timing, something similar to the first lab, and you're going to dump out the blocks in each of these 3 bins. That's it. I'm going to be in the lab helping you with this. This is just a little video to maybe just to go over things. Alright, hope it helped. Bye.